There was a specific kind of film in the 80s that Hollywood refused to make, so somebody else made it anyway on a shoestring, without permission, and apparently without any awareness that they were supposed to stop. The people who found these films were not looking for art. They were just looking for something that did not play by the rules, and these 9 films had that covered. White Dog is the film Paramount finished, watched, and then locked in a vault for 25 years because they could not figure out what to do with a movie this honest. Samuel Fuller, a director Hollywood could never quite figure out how to sell, made a film about a white German shepherd trained to attack and kill black people on sight, and what a black animal trainer does when he tries to cure the dog of something the film argues is probably incurable. Paramount gave it a 1-week run at 5 theaters in Detroit with no promotion of any kind, watched it do no business, and shelved it quietly. While civil rights organizations were threatening boycotts over a film none of their representatives had actually seen, Fuller described having a finished film locked away as something close to losing a child, and moved to France not long after, where he stayed for the rest of his career. The studio spent the next 2 decades denying the film existed while it quietly screened on cable and in art houses, and Fuller never made another Hollywood film. The director originally attached to the project lost his involvement before filming began due to his legal situation, meaning White Dog had already outlasted one director's entire relationship with American law before anyone had shot a single frame. Maximum Overdrive is the film Stephen King admitted he was coked out of his mind making, and you can tell, which he later described as the most honest thing anyone could say about a film where a cash machine calls the director an asshole on its digital screen in the opening scene. King wrote the screenplay himself about machines gaining sentience after a comet passes Earth, and in practice that means vending machines firing soda cans into the foreheads of Little League coaches, lawnmowers chasing children across baseball diamonds, and a green goblin-faced semi-truck circling a diner full of survivors for the entire second act like it has nowhere better to be. He wanted Bruce Springsteen to play the lead. The producer had no idea who Springsteen was and hired Emilio Estevez instead, and by all accounts that was the precise moment King stopped caring whether any of it was good. During the lawnmower sequence, King insisted the blades stay in for realism. The lawnmower lost control, sent a wooden splinter directly into the cinematographer's eye, and the cinematographer sued King for $18 million once production wrapped. King has spent every interview since calling Maximum Overdrive a moron movie, and saying he would like to try directing again someday, but sober. The Slumber Party Massacre was made by a director who turned down a job editing Steven Spielberg's E.T. to do it. Rita Mae Brown, the feminist author, wrote the original script as a parody of slasher films, built around a killer whose weapon is a power drill carried at crotch height for the entire film, and she wrote that on purpose. Roger Corman's production company bought the script and filmed it as a straight slasher film against Brown's wishes, so what exists is a feminist satire of slasher movies that was accidentally turned into the exact film it was trying to satirize, and the critics and the filmmakers spent 40 years disagreeing about which version they were all looking at. The actor playing the killer refused to speak to any of the actresses until after their death scenes had been filmed, and nobody on set seems to have thought to ask whether that was normal. The film cost $220,000, returned $3.6 million, and is now in the Museum of Modern Art's permanent collection as a landmark of feminist horror. Not what Roger Corman was going for, but by any measure considerably better. Savage Streets is the film Linda Blair turned down because she was tired of exploitation films, and then made it anyway because the profit participation deal was too good to walk away from, and the film she made to reclaim her dignity became one of the most celebrated exploitation pictures of the decade, which is how the industry works when it has decided what you are. She had been nominated for an Academy Award at 14, charged with cocaine conspiracy at 18, and was playing a leather-clad high school vigilante, hunting down rapists with a crossbow, in her mid-20s, and if you follow that line from point to point, it tells a story Blair never had to say out loud. The original director quit after a few days of filming, several cast members left with him, and at least one character disappears from the second half without explanation, because nobody had time to write her out. Call it a production disaster, or the film accidentally documenting its own collapse in real time. Class of Nuke M High exists because Lloyd Kaufman decided to make a film about radioactive high school students after reading about a nuclear plant incident near Manhattan. Then Chernobyl happened while it was in production, giving the whole thing a real-world resonance that no amount of money could have manufactured. The film follows a high school built next to a nuclear power plant, whose honor roll students start dealing contaminated marijuana, mutate into monsters, and at one point produce a miscarried creature that takes up residence in a toilet. The whole thing plays like it was made by someone genuinely furious about the nuclear industry who also thought the funniest possible response was this specific film. Kaufman hired a film editor to direct it, realized mid-production the task was too much, and stepped in to finish it himself under a fake name to avoid a Directors Guild dispute. Troma changed the title from Nuke High to Class of Nuke High, hoping audiences would mistake it for a respectable film called Class of 1984. It worked well enough that the film spawned 3 sequels, a remake, and a Broadway musical, none of which involved the toilet creature, still the best part of any of them. Vice Squad started as a documentary about Hollywood prostitution, before anyone had written a word of fiction, and when that proved impossible to air on television, it became a dramatic thriller instead. Every hour of real research the lead actress had spent living among actual Los Angeles prostitutes stayed in the film even after the format changed. She plays Princess, a single mother working Hollywood Boulevard who gets pressured into helping the Vice Squad trap a pimp named Ramrod. Wings Hauser plays Ramrod in a performance so genuinely disturbing that critics at the time could not agree on whether it was brilliant or whether someone should have intervened. Hauser also wrote and sang the film's opening theme song himself, called Neon Slime, and seemed to think this was a completely normal thing to do. The film made $13 million against a budget of $5.5 million. Hauser has described Ramrod in every interview since as the role that nearly ate him alive. A strange thing to say about a character you also wrote a theme song for, though Neon Slime is not exactly a love song. Reform School Girls cast Wendy O. Williams, the lead singer of the punk band The Plasmatics, as a teenage inmate at the age of 36. Williams responded by refusing every costume the production offered her. She refused to remove her boots even in the shower scenes, and did 200 push-ups a day to maintain the kind of physical presence that makes a 36-year-old playing a teenager slightly less insane as a casting decision. The film follows a new arrival at a brutal reform school run by a warden who broadcasts religious programming over the intercom while inmates sleep. The climax involves Williams standing on top of a speeding bus aimed directly at the warden's car, the kind of ending that retroactively explains every scene that came before it. Williams improvised most of Charlie's best moments, and the fact that nobody in the film acknowledges she is twice everyone else's age is either great casting or great acting, and possibly both. She died by suicide in 1998. Reform Schoolgirls is the performance her fans come back to, a film built around how much punishment one person can absorb before they drive a bus into someone. Stewardess School is the film where the cast later confirmed that almost everyone involved, including the director, was doing cocaine throughout production, which Columbia Pictures discovered when they watched the finished cut, and immediately put it on a shelf for 18 months rather than attach their name to it in any official capacity. The film follows a group of misfits and rejects training to become flight attendants. The comedy comes from watching people treat learning to serve drinks on an aircraft with the same life or death intensity you would normally reserve for surgery, and apparently that tracks when the entire production is allegedly running on cocaine. The actress who played the warrior woman in Conan the Barbarian later said she was still surprised anyone bothered to finish editing it. Also in the cast was Judy Landers, a former Juilliard music student who had appeared on the cover of Playboy 3 years earlier, which is the kind of career trajectory that only makes sense in the 80s. The rest of the cast includes Sherman Hemsley from The Jeffersons and Don Most from Happy Days, a combination that implies somebody at Columbia genuinely believed they were making something the affiliates would be proud to air, and Columbia kept it on a shelf for 18 months before quietly handing it to late-night television. The network affiliates eventually aired it at 2 in the morning, where it belonged all along. Surf Nazis Must Die was originally just called Surf Nazis, until enough test screenings revealed that video retailers kept assuming the Surf Nazis were the heroes, and even after Troma added the Must Die, a significant number of retailers still refused to carry it. The film was shot on Huntington Beach for $20,000 without permits. It is set in a post-earthquake California where neo-Nazi surfers have seized control of the coastline. The only person with the will to stop them is an elderly black woman who breaks out of her nursing home, acquires a gun, and hunts them down one by one with the specific patience of someone who has been waiting for a reason. It is the kind of premise that sounds like a joke until you are watching it and realize the film is completely serious about every part of it. The director never made another film after this one, and the producer relocated to Canada and spent the rest of his career making films for children. It became the most popular Troma title not produced in-house, and the film that almost nobody would stock outlasted almost everything else on those shelves. If you have ever stayed up past 2 in the morning watching something you could not explain to anyone the next day, there is a reasonable chance one of these was involved.